1993 was the year East African leaders started the process that would ultimately lead to the resumption of the defunct East African Community. Since the community's collapse in 1977, a lot had happened that had reduced the tensions between Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. In late November, the three countries established a permanent tripartite commission for cooperation in Arusha. Within weeks, passenger train services between Nairobi and Kampala resumed after they had ceased for more than 15 years. By the end of the year, Presidents Mwinyi, Museveni and Daniel Arap Moi of Kenya had signed a treaty of cooperation that set the stage for reviving the East African community. On the local front, the year started with Moi and the ruling party KANU savouring the impressive victory they had scored in the general election of December 1992, the first multi-party election in Kenya in 2 decades. Not only had Moi retained the presidency against tough competition from opposition leaders, Kenneth Matiba, Mwai Kibaki and Oginga Odinga, but KANU had ended up with a majority of seats in parliament. In April, KANU's Francis Ole Kaparo was elected speaker to replace Moses Arap Kano. In the new government that Moi announced, he retained George Saitoti as vice president, but hived off from his former docket the important Ministry of Finance, which he gave to Musalia Mudavadi, son of the late powerful KANU Secretary-General Moses Mudavadi. Musalia Mudavadi now became the senior-most Western Province leader in the government. On the business and economic front, this was the year the World Bank and the IMF released to Kenya the balance of payments funds that had been suspended back in 1991. This came after the government agreed to abolish import licensing. Shortly after that, Eric Kotut was replaced as governor of the central bank by Mika Cheserem, mainly due to a spate of bank collapses, the latest one being Post Bank Credit Limited. The World Bank and IMF also forced the government to address some irregularities in its procurement decisions. In May, the National Social Security Fund, NSSF, revoked a controversial 1.2 billion Kenya shilling deal with Cyrus Jirongo's Sololo Outlets Limited for the development of 500 housing units at Nairobi South Sea. A few months later, the government bowed to pressure from conservationists and annulled its allocation of 20,000 acres in Tana River Delta to Coast Aquaculture Limited for growing prawns. 1993 was a good year for Kenya in international sports. Yobes Ondieki became the first man to run the 10,000 meters in less than 27 minutes when he won at the Grand Prix in Zurich, breaking a record that had been set earlier that year by fellow Kenyan Richard Chelimo. Another world record broken at the same games was the 3,000-meter steeplechase by Moses Kiptanui. Sally Basosio became the youngest person ever to win a World Championship 10,000 meters race at the Stuttgart World Athletics Championships. Paul Tergat won a gold medal in the World Cross Country Championship in Spain, and Cosmas Ndeti won the Boston Men's Marathon. In 1993, Kenyans said goodbye to more than 60 people who died in a Kenya Railways train crash at Mtito in January. 4 journalists, Hos Maina, Dan Eldon, and Anthony Macharia of Reuters, and Hansi Kraus of Associated Press, killed in Somalia by supporters of fugitive warlord Mohammed Farah Aidid. Veteran freedom fighter Tadeo Maura. First African member of the Legislative Assembly in pre-independence days, Eliud Mathu. Former pre-independence Liberal white politician Sir Michael Blundell. High Court Judge Fida Hussein Abdallah. Former Mukurweini MP Ngumbu Njururi. former Mombasa Mayor Msanifu Kombo, former Mau Mau freedom fighter Waruhio Itote, better known as General China, veteran trade unionist Agri Menya, and former Narok West MP John Conchella.